Hey, this is Mark Sweeney from the San Diego Padres. Do some broadcasting too. You're listening to Jim on Base.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jim on Base Show. For today's very special guest, we have on someone who played 14 years in the big leagues. He's number 2 on the all-time pinch hit list in baseball as well. He does the pre and post game for the San Diego Padres. Please welcome the great Mark Sweeney. Mark, How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's always special to talk some ball.
Yeah, excited to have you on. And I know the season just ended. You guys had such a great, exciting run. And now are you back on just full-time dad duty, or?
Yeah, that's usually the famous question at the end of the year when we're working the baseball season. They say, "What do you do in the off season?" And I said, "You know what? I introduced myself to my wife, and then I become a father." So all tongue in cheek, because the last out's made. You have that depressed feeling unless you win a World Series championship, and then you go out and say, "You know what? Now I get to be a normal person again." So all the holidays and special events, it's always fun to be around. And now I don't have to say, no, I can't make it. So now I can make it. And it's really fun.
Well, that's great. I've seen a little bit about you like on social media, and it looks like your daughter, does she play for UCLA? She's a volleyball player?
Yeah, she does. She's in her 5th year. She graduated last year. She's in a graduate program at UCLA, and man, we've had so much fun watching her. She's got 2 years of eligibility left because of COVID year and also redshirt year. But I think this is going to be her last hurrah. She's had a blast doing it. She's a stud, and I can say that because she's my stepdaughter. I don't have anything to do with her athletic ability. But I'm super proud of her. Her name's Jaden Whitmarsh, and man, it's fun to be around. It's fun to watch her. So I get to see her start of her season, and then I try to manipulate as much as I can to see it. But this year is going to be special because it's her last. And then she's got a younger sister at Arizona State, following her footsteps. She gets to play beach volleyball as well at Arizona State. So we're pretty blessed. And I have a son that's 11 years old that he's just finding his way through sports.
Awesome. So you guys are busy. You have a lot of things to get to.
I do. I love being a dad. These girls are extra special. I've had to basically co-raise them with my wife since 9 and 6 years old.
Wow.
And Jaden's 22 and Kendall's 19. So I've had a blast doing that. And then we have a boy together. So it's his name is Gavin, and we just have a good time.
Yeah, I think I've seen some posts of you and Gavin. I think he was with you on some of the pre and post game events for the Padres. So I imagine he's a big baseball fan then, or?
You know what? When you go through a time like the Padres did, it is by far the best thing that happened. And I saw everything that the Padres did, and we'll get into this further, I'm sure, with the stuff that I do. But 11-year-old watching a playoff run, them beating the Los Angeles Dodgers, him being there and being able to watch it, you can almost see that hook in him and realizing that not only does he love sports, but the San Diego Padres are extra special because of the year that they had this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine the whole family and the community gets involved as well. And it made me kind of wonder, like, how did you meet your wife?
Yeah, it was interesting because we went to this charity basketball event at University of San Diego, and a friend of mine just asked me, he said, "Hey, I have a table. I bought this table. Can you come and just kind of enjoy it?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." I met her that night, and she was an exercise, fitness, and nutritionist. And I was still trying to stay in the game of baseball. I was at that point, and I was 39 years old, trying to hang on for another year. And that's kind of the mentality we do. I played 14 years, so I absolutely loved my time, but I wanted them to rip that jersey off. So you always try to think of that edge and what's next and what can I do differently that's going to give me that extra boost, especially at 39 years old. I didn't have the wear and tear on me because I was a pinch hitter and a utility guy. But I had to get that edge. I had to find that edge. So in discussing with her, it's a long-winded story, but discussing with her, she was a nutritionist. So I said, you know what, maybe that's an element that I can get into a different energy boost, feeling that, and also picking her brain on those things. I'm always fascinated in how people not only go through and navigate their life and their livelihood, but when someone's that compassionate, that's what I got from my wife, Cindy. Not thinking that I was going to end up dating her and then end up marrying her and marrying into two beautiful girls. But that was the first time I met her. Probably a year and a half after that, we started dating and starting realizing that my baseball career was set aside, and I was starting to realize that. So that's our pseudo love story, but that's how we met, and it was really interesting how we did.
It's coming to Hallmark this winter.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll print out that card if you need it, and
Yeah.
then maybe some of these families can use that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned how she's into the fitness world, so I got to ask, have you taken her class? Does she put you through the ringer?
It's interesting because when I first met her, she did the spin class at this local
Mm.
gym. She said, you should try the spin class. And again, trying to find that edge of getting that aspect. And I said, you know what? Riding a bike sounds interesting. Let's try that. Well, I got worn out, and I still love it. I have a Peloton
Mm.
here during the pandemic, so
Yeah.
I enjoy that. She started me on my crusade of loving spin classes, but man, did I get worn out. And I didn't really love going to her classes because I didn't love the feeling of it. But eventually I had to succumb to that and end up doing that.
Well, you're still looking good, so what do you do to stay fit these days?
I just went back to the gym
Okay.
again. I was trying to kind of navigate going through it, and I've always done that thing where you're training and you're feeling good about it. Like I mentioned, the Peloton is always something that I wanted to do, but that mindset that you have as a player never leaves you. You just don't
Mm.
have to do certain sets and do certain things. Your motivation is to stay healthy for your kids, to go out. My son likes to shoot baskets right now because he's into basketball, throwing the baseball, being able to hit with him. I want to be engaged with that. Also, I want to go out there and feel very healthy. So that's my motivation now. It's
Mm.
family wise rather than, hey, I got to get ready for the spring training season,
Yeah.
and try to win a position on a
Well, that sounds good. You still got that healthy competition going.
team.
And another thing, you're a big football fan, right? Because I saw your red zone post the other day. So who are you
Yeah,
rooting for?
I am. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Okay.
Back
How'd
in
that
the
happen?
I grew up in Massachusetts, so it has no reason and rhyme or reason. But I always tell this story. I was a left-handed quarterback growing up in Massachusetts. I didn't like the New England Patriots at the time because I think every choice for me was, do I like that quarterback on the team?
Mm.
Do I enjoy watching him? And I'm probably dating myself, but it was Steve Grogan was the
Mm.
quarterback for the New England Patriots. I didn't like him. I just didn't like the way he presented himself. And I'm at the age where my son is at 11 years old. So I was trying to find that edge, but I love football. Football was my favorite sport. And as I mentioned, being a left-handed quarterback, there weren't a lot of guys in the game and in the NFL that were left-handed quarterbacks. It was Ken Stabler. I didn't like the Raiders. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to try to pick one. And it was Jim Zorn. I watched the
Ah.
Seattle Seahawks. Jim Zorn was a left-handed quarterback. They were not good. They had Kurt Warner as a running back. They had Steve Largent as a receiver. And after that, it seemed like there was a huge drop-off because they were battling to win games. And I always felt that it was like 3rd and 13 scenario. He'd be running for his life and he'd throw a 13.5 yard pass to Largent and they get a first down. And I started resonating with me that I just love this guy. I love his grit. I love his determination. And I became a Seahawks fan because of Jim Zorn. And people out there might go, who is Jim Zorn? To me, Jim Zorn was one of those guys that developed that love for what the Seattle Seahawks was. Then you got Russell Wilson, and you got
Yeah.
the championship year, and then they lost one. But the Seattle Seahawks is probably my favorite. That's the reason why I love the NFL.
See, I like that because I grew up a big Warriors fan, and
Yeah,
it's like a secret society back in the day. You're embarrassed, and then it pays off, hopefully.
it does pay off, and man, you get to watch a great product that
Yeah.
wins championship after championship.
And it feels that much better too, as if you just jumped on the bandwagon.
So true. So true.
Well, what about you besides sports? Who are you? Like, what kind of hobbies do you have? Are you into cars? Are you a music guy? Like, what do you like to do?
I think music kind of generates everything. I don't know what we would do without music, but I listen to everything. Even my daughters love rap.
Okay.
I'm the only one. I even driving them to school, they would put rap on. I say, listen, I'm driving, so I get the choice of what I'm listening to. But they listen to rap. That's the only thing that I don't love, but I
Mhm.
still listen to it because of them. But I listen to everything.
Okay.
I prefer country to it's the calmness of it. I love country, but I'll listen to anything. I love the old school music. So it's not necessarily a hobby. It's just that I love it. It makes you feel better. I just yesterday, I love playing golf, and it's all about the group that you're in, the foursome that you're doing. But I got to play Torrey Pines yesterday,
Oh, wow.
and I haven't played Torrey Pines in over a year. And it's just, yeah, it gives you that feeling. It's almost like walking into Wrigley Field or Fenway Park. It gives you that feel of this is awesome. Obviously, the PGA playing there, having the tour championship there. But I'm on the first tee, and I wanted to hear someone kind of announce me. It's one of those things you get so excited. And I'll tell you this: I love golf. I should be a lot better because I play a lot during the year. I play once or twice a year when we're working, just to kind of get away from the game of baseball. It's my out. But I started with a triple bogey yesterday. Bunker, hit over the green, chipped on and three putted. I had a triple bogey to start at Torrey Pines, and I was disappointed. But
Yeah.
the day finished off better, and I was at Torrey Pines with three great guys. I had a blast, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, does that mean you have three hard drinks right off the bat then, or?
No, I'm not a huge drinker once in a
Okay.
while. I'm a casual drinker, but yeah, on the course, I'm having a good time playing 18 holes. And obviously at Torrey Pines, you're sitting there taking a shot, and you look over your shoulder and you see the coastline, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It wasn't sunny out yesterday, but it didn't need to be. I was at Torrey Pines playing golf.
Yeah, see, that sounds like that's a perfect day right there,
It really is. I came back. I got to hang out with my son later, and then my daughter came home from school last night. So yeah, it was a perfect day yesterday.
Nice. Well, you mentioned earlier you were born and you're from Massachusetts, and you were born in Framingham, right?
I loved growing up there, and I grew up the youngest of four boys. So I got beat up. I got tossed around. I say that all tongue in cheek because our family dynamic is all done by my mom and dad. My mom and
Mm.
dad raised us, and I believe this, and I could sit back because I'm doing it now. They raised us right. We didn't have a lot. We didn't need a lot. We had a lot of love. We were always into sports. But it just got passed down. And my brothers, like I said, they beat me up, they protected me. We had fun outside playing one-on-one basketball. Me and my next oldest brother, we fought all the time. But we came back, we hugged each other. It was just competitiveness that brought on all those fights. But it was such a great time to be raised in Massachusetts. And I say that we had the four seasons, you're involved with so many different things. But we grew up in the city, right outside the city of Boston, probably 45 minutes west of Boston. And we were blessed watching professional teams. And you're getting raised and you realize, man, is this the way it's supposed to be everywhere? And obviously, when you travel, it's not. But man, we had so many great teams. But I was watching the Boston Celtics at a time where Larry Bird's there, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrott. I mean, these guys were icons in sports, and they were winning championships. And like I mentioned earlier with my son watching the Padres and how it influences you, when you watch a championship and you see a pro team in your city and they're expected to win the next year, they're expected to win the next year. And then you look up the rafters and there's numbers being retired. I didn't realize that was really what molds you as an athlete. You start watching certain personalities. And I was raised in a family that It wasn't like, hey, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. It's find your path.
Hmm.
And that's why I love my parents and my brothers for molding me into it. I was the only baseball player in the whole family. And I don't know how that really happened, other than we were raised in a position where you go out and do something you love to do. That was all what was expressed. My dad was always coaching us,
Hmm.
up until the point where we felt like, Dad, you don't really know too much anymore. But my childhood was a dream come true, because we could go out there, we could have fun during the summer. We played football, basketball, and baseball. And then I ended up going to the University of Maine from high school, and just absolutely thought that that was the perfect place for me to go play football and baseball and decide in a college atmosphere.
Well, how many times do people ask about your brother, Mike Sweeney?
That's the beauty of it. It's a long story. I'll tell you this. And Mike Sweeney to me is not my brother, but we call him brother from another mother, right? And he calls me big bro.
Oh, okay.
There's so many great stories about how we were raised, because I was in Massachusetts. He grew up in Southern California, and totally different extremes. But when you get into that process of going through baseball, and you have that common name, and it's Mark and Mike, spelled Sweeney the same way. It was great. The first time I met Mike Sweeney, because we kept on getting our minor league cards, and everyone would mix us up and just assume that we were the same person. And that continues to this day. But the best story of it, Ryan, is when I got to meet him. The first time was in spring training. He's in the Royals camp in Baseball City. I'm with the St. Louis Cardinals, and of course, I'm making the travel squad every single time because I'm a utility guy, and that's when you get your starts. So I got a start that day, and Mike Sweeney at the time was catching. So I come out of the dugout, they announce my name, and of course the fans start rumbling like, "Oh, this must be his brother. This is cool," because Mike Sweeney became a big deal.
Yeah.
And he was really a guy that I think a lot of people were super excited about, because not only could he hit, he was a great guy, and the fans absolutely loved him. So I'm walking up, and I'm walking behind the umpire and over, and I said, and I hit him on the shin guards. I said, "It's finally nice to meet you." And I'm digging a hole with my back foot into the batter's box. He gets on his knees and he goes, "It sure is nice to meet you, man." And like, you could immediately tell how nice he was. Like the first 5 words out of his mouth, I'm like, I wanted to hug him because he's such a nice kid. So all of a sudden he's on and he goes, "Man, this is so cool." And I said, "Man, I'll tell you one thing. I'm sick of getting your baseball cards in the mail." Joking wise, obviously. And the umpire looks at us and goes, "Can we get this going? Can we get?" And it seemed like we were having a conversation for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was only like 30 seconds, but that's how we first met. And my next story is, we're in Kansas City. I don't know what team I was on, but we do interleague play because I was a National League guy the whole time. We go into Kansas City, and he's already a star. So I see him out in the field, and I said, "Hey, buddy, can you do me a favor? Can you just sign a bat to me?" And he said, "I would love that. That's such an honor. It's so great." And he goes, "Hey, by the way, my dad's in the stands." He goes, "Wave to him." I waved to his dad in the stands because he's watching batting practice. I waved to him, and I get the bat in the locker room. I take a look at the bat, Ryan, and it says, he goes, "Brother, I'll never understand why mom and dad separate us at birth." He goes, "Have the best career, blessed career, Mike Sweeney." And I laughed so hard of just what he put on the bat. And it's one of those things where it's an honor to get someone's signature, and they might say something like, "Hey, have a great career, best wishes."
Mm-hmm.
I never thought someone was going to write, "I never knew why mom and dad separated us at birth." And
That's
it's so
classic.
special to me. It's a classic. We are continued great friends.
Oh, great.
We have a lot in common, and we live in Southern California together now, so we see each other once in a while.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're in a room there with some memorabilia. So is the bat in the room? Like, do you have it displayed?
The bat is in a rack. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in a bat rack in here, and it's one of those special bats. I mean, I had everything like I mentioned. When you get someone's bat and they sign it to you, it's extra special. But that has a special place for a number of reasons.
Since you're from Boston, I could say it's wicked awesome,
It is wicked awesome. You can't believe that. You can go to the package store and buy some beers.
See, did you lose the accent or did you just never really have one?
I did. My dad still has it. When
Okay.
I go back east, it actually drives me crazy. I got to be honest with you. The accent, when you travel, you realize it almost made me sound like I was stupid. Um, but I think the travel through the minor leagues and all that just got rid of the accent. I played in Texas in Double A,
Mm.
and I felt like I was saying y'all and so many things. You just kind of mix and match. I think that's taken it away. But I do have words that come out once in a while that are totally East Coast.
Well, one more Boston kind of question. Since you did mention you're into music, you got to be an Aerosmith guy, right? Since the
I
Toxic
am.
Twins are from there.
Yeah, I was an Aerosmith guy. I mean, I think my oldest brother, who was really the musician of our
Mm.
family, kind of threw that out. He was rocking the t-shirts all the time and everything else. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. When you're in Boston, it's almost generating that music is extra special for you.
Mm. Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to touch on too, it's kind of funny. I've had a lot of guys on the show who are actually left-handed, and I write left but throw right. And
Really?
yeah, I like eat left, I shave left, but I throw and bat right. So I'm kind of screwed up. I'm curious what your kind of method is with things.
Yeah, I mentioned golf, and I golf right-handed. I
Okay.
hit lefty, but when I golf right-handed, I putt lefty. So
Hmm.
there's the ambidextrous. I call it ambidextrous slash excuse, because in golf, if I'm not putting well, I'm like, I should be putting righty. It just doesn't seem it. But I golf righty because I grew up and I didn't have
Mm.
clubs, left-handed clubs. Nowadays, it's easy to get those. It wasn't back in the day. So my brothers were right-handed golfers. So I just started swinging right-handed. Um, I do a lot of things. I kick with my right foot. I throw with my left. I hit with my left. And then here's my 11-year-old son. He throws right. He hits left. So
Huh.
it's a mixed bag for
Yeah.
all of us. And maybe that's an excuse. Maybe it's something that to be excited about.
See, it makes me feel better. I'm not the only one that's screwed up then.
No, I think we're all thrown together, and who knows what's going to happen. But you know what? You make the best of it. You go out there and have fun.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being a left-handed quarterback, were you a three-sport guy or two-sport?
I was a three-sport guy in high school. I'll tell you this, Ryan, and I think this is interesting because I loved football, as I mentioned earlier. Football was my passion. So when I went up to play quarterback at the University of Maine, I talked to the baseball team because in high school we were good in baseball. And I still loved it because we had success.
Mm.
And I think success really breeds that when you're younger, is where is my path? And not necessarily, there's athletes out there, and we obviously talk about Shohei and what he does,
Yeah.
the two-way guy. There's so many special athletes. Bo Jackson comes to mind. Um, but sometimes there's people that are better. Like Mookie Betts is probably a better bowler than he is a baseball player. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
He's so good. Um, my my passion was football. And when I went to University of Maine, I still loved baseball enough to say, you know what, I want to give it a shot in college. And that really is the truth. It wasn't my passion, which I think this day and age, we all see it. My 11-year-old's going to go through it. And I constantly say it to him. It's like, hey, buddy, you don't have to make a decision when you're 11.
Mhm.
And in Southern California, anywhere on the West Coast, and it happens on the East Coast too. So many of these kids are deciding what to do at an early age, and I don't think that's really a
Mhm.
good thing. I look back at my situation, and I love that I was raised as an athlete. It wasn't raised as a baseball player only, and I played another sport, or I loved football. It was my passion. It was what I wanted to put my everything into. But I also had success baseball wise that gave me an opportunity to go to the University of Maine, and that's the reason why I go back and I made that choice, because it has a lot to do with my life.
Mhm.
I went to play football and then obviously missed fall baseball that year. Then got into baseball in the spring when they were kickstarted, but freshman class was already ready and integrated into their team. But we had a special freshman class. We had 7 guys that ended up playing.
Oh,
I got to play immediately, and I don't know how that worked. It was probably just dumb luck, but I played well at the right time. And I say
mm,
that because that's the first time I started to fall in love with baseball. And it's shocking to people because nowadays we hear parents like, well, my son's 8 and he loves baseball. Is he doing enough?
mm.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like at 8 years old,
Yeah.
you should just be a boy. You should
Hmm.
go out there and just have a good time and
Yeah,
have fun
exactly.
and play sports. But I fell in love with baseball because it's an everyday aspect that I fell in love with. It's a process. There's failures that you go through so many times. So going back to that, I really I really love the fact that I loved football. I had to get rid of it because baseball needed to take precedence.
Mm.
But that choice was in college, and thank God I made that choice because it was probably the right thing, knowing I played 14 years in the big leagues.
Well, you also played in the Cape Cod League, right? So I was curious if
Yeah,
that's kind of like an unofficial fraternity because I had Ron Rodas on and Bill Lasky and guys that have been involved with that. And I was just curious what that experience was like for you because it seems like a lot of guys go to that league and maybe break out or kind of find themselves in a way.
yeah, that's the greatest part. First off, it's a first class league.
Mm.
It's all and above its reputation. There's amazing players that are down there. For example, the first year I went there, I led the league in strikeouts. I was a
Oh, wow.
freshman. I was a freshman at University of Maine, and I say that we go through failures, right? And how does that mold you? I preface it. I say I led the league in strikeouts, and I wasn't a pitcher. So I think a lot of people realize that I had success as a freshman at University of Maine. I had an opportunity to go down to Cape Cod, and I'm playing against stars that Frank Thomas was there, Chuck Knobloch was there.
Wow.
There were so many guys that were huge at their universities, but they're coming to Cape Cod to play in the Wood Bat League, and it was star-studded. So it's kind of the first time you look around and go, man, I'm trying to get myself where I feel comfortable about playing against this talent, but you measure yourself. And Cape Cod League gave you that opportunity to watch star players, really good arms, guys that had good curveballs, sliders. I
Mm.
mean, it was kind of the first time you go, man, this is a different level.
Yeah.
So I got to play 3 years in Cape Cod League because I was a freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And I played as a junior because I didn't sign until my senior year.
Mm.
So it was 3 full seasons in the Cape Cod League. And man, it was great to kind of mature slowly through that league. But I got to watch some unbelievable stars. The other aspect to it that's great is it's the first time you see the whole country. Their star players come from California, USC, Texas, Texas A&M, obviously, Auburn, as I mentioned.
Mm.
Um, Everyone's coming to Cape Cod, and it's the first time you go, man, this is almost the best of the best.
Hmm.
So if I can make it here, then I start thinking about, can I get it to that next level? So Cape Cod League definitely did that. As I mentioned, I led the league in strikeouts, but I started getting better, and I had to. And I realized, man, I got to push because some of these guys that I'm watching now, I hope I get to see them in the big leagues. But man, these guys are stars of stars right now.
Gotcha. Well, you were drafted by the Dodgers in 1990, right, in the 39th round. So I
Yeah.
was wondering what made you say no and I'm going to stay in school because eventually you were then drafted the next year by the Angels in the ninth round. So it paid off.
Yeah, it did pay off. I wasn't ready. I didn't think I was ready. I still needed to get better. The one aspect, and it goes back to my parents, I was on schedule to graduate. And I don't think people realize that when you leave for an opportunity, I say, in the minor leagues, your motivation isn't to go back to school. And there's times where you feel like you have to do something every single day. And that organization that has you that might think the same way, they're going to covet all your time. So it's not necessarily a 5 or 6 month period. It's 11 months because they have you. They have you in an instructional league. They have you to, so going and furthering your education or finishing your education was really difficult. And I asked questions about that, but I was on schedule to graduate. I said, you know what? If I'm going to take this shot and I get another shot, I'm going to try to I'm going to buy into what my process is and go back for my senior year. I ended up being the Golden Spikes Award finalist, which was great. It's the Heisman Trophy Award. So my senior year was really good. And then I still had that opportunity to go into the minor leagues and get that opportunity, but my education's in my back pocket. So that really became something that I thought was an easy, lesser burden on my mind, because there's a lot of guys that would talk about, hey man, I don't know if I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to try to finish. Some guys get in their contract. Back then, I just felt comfortable about taking that opportunity in the minor leagues and going with it, because that had to be your priority, number one.
What's your major in?
Marketing.
Oh, nice.
Business marketing. I loved it. I thought it was something that I could kind of educate myself and be better at. But I loved my education. I loved my time at the University of Maine. And I got to grow my senior year. Like I mentioned, I wasn't ready, because when you go on your own in the minor leagues, you're on those buses, you're in the hotels, you have your roommates, and it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of lonely times. And I was away from my family. It was the first time I really was away from everything, because when you're in college, it's kind of contained and you realize that this is a process. But the minor leagues, you feel like an individual, but you're expressing a lot of friendships, but you're an individual because that 0 for 4 and you're staring at the ceiling going, what am I doing here? Comes up a lot. So the mentality of and being mentally strong has a lot to do with getting through that process.
Well, you finally get through it. You make your debut August 4th, 1995 against the rival Cubs, right? Because you came up with the Cardinals. And you went 0 for 4, but you had an RBI. So was that like a sac fly, or what happened with that?
Yeah, I don't even, it's a blur, because when you first get called up, Ryan, it's one of those things that you feel like someone's joking with you. I got traded to the Cardinals probably 3 weeks previous at the trading deadline. So a lot of newness was going on. I was an outfielder at the time, and I had to be, they wanted me to try first base because I was left-handed. So it was a crash course to see if I could play first base. Well, I was early work every single day. I was worn out, but I ended up hitting really, really well at the time. And I ended up getting that call, as you mentioned, on August 4th. And the night before was the first time I went out with some friends on the team, because I was so exhausted. I just fell asleep when I got back to my room. So we're on the road, we're in Buffalo, and my roommate goes, hey, we're going out tonight. You want to come with us? I go, yeah, I'd love to. Well, I had a few cocktails and I felt like I was drunk, like after my second beer. So I go back to, and it's late. We're out late. I get back 5 a.m. I get a phone call from our trainer, and my roommate answers it. I didn't even hear the phone, and he holds it over to me, and I get on the phone with the trainer, and he goes, hey, pack up your bags. You're going to the big leagues. I go, who is this? I've been with them for 3, and his name was O'Neill. I remember the trainer's name was O'Neill. I said, Mark, I go, what are you talking about? I go, who is this? And he goes, dude, get your bags, hurry up, and the manager's going to meet you in the lobby. I go downstairs. He's there. He congratulates me. I take off. I got to go to the field. I get on the plane, and I'm just like taking my first breath, because I called my parents. I said, you got to be there. That was my only wish for them to be. And we were playing in St. Louis. So I called my parents. I called everyone else. They're calling the brothers, they're trying to figure everything out. Everything's crazy. So I sat in that plane seat and I took my first breath of the day because I just overwhelming when
Yeah.
you're going to the big leagues. And I look over and it's a special assignment instructor for the St. Louis Cardinals, their first base instructor. And he's sitting right next to me. He goes, "Congratulations." And I look at him. I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Meanwhile, I still felt like I was drunk. I felt like I was drunk, and obviously I wasn't. But I fly to St. Louis. My parents get there. My brothers are coming from different spots. My family was there for the first time. We had a rain delay, and I was starting at first base against the Cubs. And it was something that I'll never, ever forget. And it's a blessing just to get one day in the big leagues. I say that to so many people, and I don't want to minimize that. And I talk about 14 years, but man, that first day is always remembering what you're supposed to remember. I don't remember the 0 for 4. I don't remember the RBI, but I do remember I couldn't feel my legs in the batter's box when I first got in the batter's box.
That's awesome because then the next day, do you remember this though? You got your first hit off Jim Bollinger, right?
I did. I remember the first hit. It was to left field, and rounding first base there's no better feeling. You're coming around and you come back and anything, and I still do this as a broadcaster. I love guys first, and when they come around, they mess with the ball and so forth. I still have the ball. I gave it to my parents because they were there all weekend. It's one of those things. It's extra special because my family is my dynamic. It's my heartbeat. And them all being there, my brothers and my nephew and nieces at the time, they were there, and they got to feel what I got to feel, and that's what's extra special. It's not individualized. I never make it about myself, but man, having that first in the big leagues, it's almost like you have to check those boxes and realize and remember. I felt like someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and go, "Dude, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You're going back to Louisville." I was in the big leagues for a while before I went to the minor leagues again, but that extra special moment, that first hit was really special.
Well, it's got to be pretty surreal too, looking back on it, being a rookie and you get to break in with Joe Torre as a manager, right? That's got to be pretty neat.
Well, Joe Torre unfortunately lost his job that year. It was an interim manager for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay.
And it's full circle because my last manager was Joe Torre in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I actually got to play for Joe Torre, which was extra special. I absolutely love him. He kept me in the big leagues probably longer than he probably wanted to. I thought I was going to get a tap on the shoulder at 39 years old saying, "Hey, you're not good enough," because I played my way out of the game. But I missed him in St. Louis. It was Mike Jorgensen was our interim manager. But at that point, everything's going so crazy. I'm looking around and I see Bernard Gilkey and Ray Langford and Brian Jordan in the outfield. One of my best friends is John Mabry, who was also playing first base. I became integrated into St. Louis quickly because how special those fans are, how great having that uniform on, because I'll tell you a side story on this. My first game, Mike Morgan was pitching. He comes out in like the 5th inning, I think it was. And it was the first time that I looked around, and I'm holding the guy on at first base. He's walking off the mound, and I'm talking to the first base coach, meaning I have no idea what's going on. Your head's spinning like crazy. And I remember looking down and seeing the embroidery on the Cardinals across your chest. It's a white, beautiful uniform. And I looked down, and remember, the minor league uniforms aren't even close to what we do. So I look down at this and go, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And as I'm doing that, I go, "Okay, this is weird." And I look up, and it was 50,000 people in the stands because you mentioned it's against the Cubs. So that was the first time in the 5th inning that I got super nervous. That's how much goes through your mind. But I'm looking at 50,000 people at Busch Stadium going, "This is the most incredible thing possible." And as you mentioned, this is before my first hit, and I went 0 for 4 that game. But those moments are what you remember. It's not necessarily like little individual things. I just remember those. I remember how beautiful that uniform was. And it was like someone just stopped everything and said, hey, listen, jack on the brakes and realize this is baseball. It's what you've played your whole life.
Yeah. That's a pretty great story. And, being a fan of sports, it's got to be surreal to walk in the clubhouse and see guys like Dennis Eckersley, Ozzie Smith. I know they're a little bit older by that point, but did they warm up to you, or did anyone take you under their wing? You mentioned John Mabry.
Yeah, I mean, John today is he's a friend because of baseball, but he'd be my best friend no matter what. If we were walking down the street and I just met him, he has that personality. And it's a lifelong remembrance. It is about the stars, though, because Ozzie Smith, to me, and you mentioned Dennis Eckersley, one of the best closers ever. Beautiful hair, flopping as it came in. But I was always one of those guys to describe it. I was always one of those guys that marveled about the stars, and I was like a little kid inside. But on the exterior, you can't sit there and be fanboy. It's one of those things you're like, hey, I got to play with these guys, and they're my teammates.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hard to get past that. I'll tell you this, and you mentioned him. Ozzie Smith, to me, changed so much about my mentality of the game of baseball. And to put in perspective for the listeners, I had Ozzie Smith, to me, is the greatest shortstop to ever play the game of baseball. And I know I played with Omar Vizquel too. Incredible. Two of the best shortstops ever. But the reason why I side with Ozzie Smith is that he was the impact of baseball that was incredible. In 1997, Tony La Russa came over for the St. Louis Cardinals. He also brought over a talented shortstop in Royce Clayton. And Royce Clayton and Ozzie Smith had to battle out to be the opening day shortstop during spring training. And I got to witness this. And I watched it. And I watched Ozzie Smith, who came off of shoulder surgery, and he won the position. No offense to Royce Clayton, because I think he was brilliant at short, very athletic. But Ozzie played, and he deserved that nod at first base, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. But Royce Clayton played a lot. And why I say that story is that I got to be over the railing watching games and had to learn as I went, because I didn't get playing time. John Mabry was playing every day. I had to get spot starts, but I had to learn the game over the railing. And why I say that is Ozzie Smith is on the bench with me. And Royce Clayton's playing. And Ozzie Smith, one night in particular, and I don't even remember who we were playing, I don't remember the situation, but I was always nervous about Tony La Russa saying, hey, you're hitting in the fifth, and he's making a move, because as a pinch hitter, you had to be ready. And it was me and Willie McGee on the bench that were left-handed, and I had to be ready. Obviously, I was ready in the fifth. Willie McGee had to be ready in the ninth. But Ozzie Smith is over the railing with me, and he taught me the game that night. And why I say the game, it's not swinging a bat, it's not taking ground balls, it's not running the bases, it's treating fans, it's financial people that are going to be knocking on your door and calling you on the phone. It is all the autograph seekers after the game, how to treat people, how to look for certain things, how to watch the game. Ozzie told me that during this game. And I remember it, and it was so influential to me as a player, because one, I sit there and go, why is Ozzie Smith taking the time? Because he doesn't need to. I need to be a good listener. But he basically taught me the game of baseball that night. Obviously, so many coaches, so many people have taught me the game of baseball, but it was the details that he provided to me. And it's a star of the game, and someone that you sit there and go, I can't believe Ozzie Smith is on the same team I am. I can't believe I walk into that locker room and I get to see number one over there and Smith crosses and those beautiful birds, as I mentioned. But he was in the locker room, and he always treated me like I was one of his. And yes, there was that, he's a star and here I am, because he walks to the top of the step and the crowd goes crazy, and for obvious reasons. I called my parents that night after the game, and it was late in Massachusetts. And I called them and I said, I just learned the game of baseball. And my dad goes, what? And I said, Ozzie Smith just told me everything that I know you've taught me. I know you've said so many things, but he put the stamp of approval on everything that I was doing. And I felt like Ozzie Smith was the perfect person to anoint me into the game of baseball. And it was really, really special.
The wizard.
The wizard. I couldn't believe he couldn't do the flips at the end of at the end of his career.
Yeah.
But man, we had so much fun with him. Great sense of humor. I absolutely love Ozzie Smith for the reasons I just told you. But man, this guy molded me. And when I got traded from there, he made a special trip down there to wish me goodbye and wish me luck when I was coming out to San Diego after I got traded to San Diego Padres.
Wow. That's pretty neat. And I was going to ask about that because then in '97, I believe you were traded to the Padres, right? So in a way, that was kind of like you're coming home.
Yeah, it was really cool because he played there before. He said it's a special place, and yes, he did everything in a St. Louis Cardinals uniform. But we all seen that diving plays made
Yeah.
going past second base and doing the barehanded play. He was the wizard, but he gave me a lot of knowledge. And I'll tell you one thing: when he said goodbye to me, he said something that was pretty important because I have a lot of fun in the game. And when you're a bench player, you got to have fun. You have to have a balance. You got to be prepared and you got to get hits when you're coming off the bench. There's that element to it. But he said to me, and I'll never forget, he said, if you ever change the way you are as a person and having fun with the game, he said, you're going to do yourself a disservice and you'll be out of the game faster than normal. He
Wow.
said, don't ever change. And to me, it was kind of like anointing me to be Mark Sweeney, be the fun-loving guy, because here's the thing that everyone needs to know. When you're in the big leagues, it's a privilege, but also it's a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. It should put a smile on your face. And I had a balance of it where I put a lot of time into it, but I also had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with my teammates. I had the greatest teammates possible. And Ozzie Smith leads that list, and obviously John Mabry, as I mentioned, but I could go on and on with the amazing teammates that I had. And that's what I miss. That's what molded me. That's what was the greatest experience, because we were not only with the stars, but they were also normal dudes. And I always thought that was probably the greatest thing, but Ozzie Smith molded that in me.
Well, you speak about meeting great people, having fun moments in your career. You got to play for the great Bruce Bochy 3 different times. Did he have a nickname for you, or?
Everyone called me Sween Dog. He probably wanted to slap me across the head because of the times that he would send me up in the ninth inning, and the next day I'd walk by him and he'd look straight down the ground because I punched out looking or something like that. Bruce Bochy to me is I'm so happy he's back in the game. He's with the Texas Rangers. I'm
Yeah.
excited. He's already a Hall of Fame manager, but this is the love of baseball, and that's what I got from him when we had a magical ride in 1998 and derailed by the Yankee team that was incredible in the World Series. That was his first chance to showcase how good he was as a manager, how great he was as a player's manager, because I got to watch that. I got to watch how he handled stars, how he handled us off the bench. He's just brilliant. But Bruce Bochy is the guy that continues to get better and better. And obviously in the Giants uniform, winning 3 World Series championships, doing what he did with everyone. And you see the Buster Posies of the world and so many of these guys that really benefit from having a guy like Bruce Bochy. To me, I just saw the tip of the iceberg and what he is to the game of baseball. And he continues to do that with the Texas Rangers, which I wouldn't be surprised if not only are they winning division championships, but they're in the World Series in a few years.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking also about your time with the Giants, I had to ask it. I don't know if you heard, but Gaylord Perry passed away today.
I did.
Yeah. So when you're playing on the Giants and you're in the clubhouse and you had, as they call them, the living monuments, the McCoveys, the Mays, the Perrys, did you take advantage of that at all or talk
I
hitting with
did.
them?
I was always a guy. I love the history of the game. I think the world of what everyone created ahead of us, because these were stars that weren't getting paid like the
Yeah.
stars are these days. but the passion and the love and longevity means a lot to me. But walking into the locker room and seeing a Willie Mays, seeing McCovey, the genuine nature of the game of baseball just grew the love for me, and watching these stars be the important pieces of what makes the San Francisco Giants so special. What makes every organization special is your history. So yes, losing Gaylord Perry today, it's like you become in that fraternity of baseball, and you realize no matter if you're in that uniform or not, it's one of those stars that it's a loss, and it's a tough loss, because these people, when they came in and you were in the Giants uniform and you realized that they were doing a special day or the Willie McCovey Award and everyone's coming in.
Yeah.
Those guys always shared themselves. And I say this, the clubhouse guy, Mike Murphy, who's been there for so many years, always opened up his office to the stars. So Willie's in there, McCovey, you're walking in, getting ready to put your batting practice top on, and you got Willie McCovey there, Willie Mays, Gaylord Perry, and all of these stars that have developed that history. I never, ever took it for granted. I didn't want to, because that's what really is what passed on the legacy, and why the San Francisco Giants and all of these organizations are so special.
Yeah, definitely. And you went on to also play on the Dodgers, and that's where you ended your career. And I had to ask about something I thought was interesting. I wanted to know the story behind it. The whole Clayton Kershaw, I think you gave him your number. And I was curious, how did that happen? And it just seemed kind of weird because he was a rookie, right? So
Yeah.
how did that all happen?
It was extra special because he's 19 years old. I'm in the last year of their spring training complex, which was legendary. And here comes Clayton Kershaw. That's all we're hearing is what this talented left-hander is going to do. Is he going to make the team? What's going to happen? And I think he was number 57, something like that, where we saw him in spring training, and he's got the big number in the back. It wasn't 57 at the time, but he's going through his spring training, and you start seeing it. And he's getting the start, and here he is on the curveball. He's basically a 2-pitch pitcher at the time. I'm like, man, this guy, he's going to be really good. So, as a utility guy and a guy that gets in the organization for the first time, you're just putting on a uniform. I mean, it was Joe Torre at the time, so he took over for Grady Little, who I was with for maybe 2 months when I got traded over there. But here I am wearing number 22, not thinking of it, because that's the number that they asked me if that's okay. And I said, yeah, I'll take it, because I still had to make the teams. And when I made the team, and I'm number 22, I think it was like the second month of the year. And Clayton obviously made the team, and he was doing great. He's one of our starters, and kept on watching him. You realized when they bring Sandy Koufax in to spring training, as I've talked about with all these stars, and he's going over and talking to Clayton Kershaw in his warm-ups and his bullpen sessions, you're like, this guy's going to be pretty special. So obviously Clayton's done what he's done. He is an amazing player, but I think the forecast with a lot of people in that organization was this guy's going to be a star, and he's going to be a star. So the second month in the season, he comes up. I mean, a buddy of him comes up and says, "Hey, Clayton, that number 22 is Clayton's favorite number." And I said, "Well, let me take it off and put a Kershaw name on the back, because it doesn't matter to me." And he goes, "No, he doesn't. He'll feel uncomfortable about it. He shouldn't do that." And I went straight to the clubhouse guy, and I said, "Hey, man, Clayton wants number 22. I said, I don't really care what number I have. It doesn't really matter as long as it's not, something that looks bad on the back. But let's do that." And he goes, I don't know if we can do that, because the PR is going to have a problem with it. All the PR books and the books that they have for all the press, it's going to get messed up. I said, "Mitch," his name is Mitch Poole. I said, "Mitch, you have to do this, because he's going to be in this number a lot longer. I might be gone next week. Let's get him in the number." Well, long story short, they did it. And thank God, because I'm just glad. And I told my son this the other day, I wore 22 before Clayton Kershaw did. And it's just between he and I. It's pretty cool, because I think the world of Clayton. I love what he is to the game of baseball, to what he's done for the Dodger organization. But that was just a meaningless thing for me to do, in my opinion. Of course, I joked with him. I said, "Hey, man, this is going to cost you a Rolex watch. It's going to maybe, the Harley Davidson, all the stories that you hear that
Yeah.
these guys end up in changing numbers and wanting." I joked with him because obviously he's a rookie at the time. He's not making a lot of money. He has made a lot of money since. But I'm so glad that he's in that, because 22, when you see the Dodger uniform, you see 22, no one's going to be wearing that anymore. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons why, because not only is he extra special, he's great for the Dodger organization, and his name is synonymous to Sandy Koufax, which is one of his good friends. And I think that's amazing of what you can do in that uniform, because he was projected to do that. And sometimes a lot of it, people fall off. He didn't fall off at all. He continues to be a star of the game.
Yeah, see, that'll be a good story to tell at the Hall of Fame induction, you know?
Right. Right. Because he's a shoe-in for sure.
Yeah. Well, I had kind of a fun question for you. You know, when you've been playing in the game for 14 years, what is worse, getting hit by a pitch or fouling it off your shin?
I'll say fouling off the shin.
Okay.
And the reason why, I got a spot start against Kurt Schilling in San Diego, and I'm playing right field. And Tony Gwynn, it was a day game, so Tony Gwynn took
Mm,
the day off, Mr. Padre. And of
yeah.
course, the people in right field are like, "Why is Sweeney playing today? I want to watch Tony Gwynn carve up 2 doubles and 4 for 5 game." But my first at bat, Kurt Schilling threw a split finger. I'll never forget it. I fouled it off the shin, and it hurt. And of course, you're getting a spot start. You're like, I got to stay in the game. So I'm limping around. The umpires give me some time, and all of a sudden I'm getting in there, and I probably struck out that time. I go back to the bench, and I go out to right field, and I look down, and it's like the size of a baseball on my shin. And I still have the indentation in my
Wow.
bone in my shin. So I hit it pretty good. But I had to keep on moving around because it hurt so bad. And I'm like, I can't come out of this game. Like my leg has to be chopped off before I have to come out of this game. But yeah, so long story, like anything else. I think it's fouling the ball off your shin over that.
That sounds terrible because I'd be on the ground crying. I don't know how you guys do it.
I wanted to, believe me, I wanted to, and I had a shin pad the next time I went up
Okay.
there, but it was hard to put the shin pad over the big huge baseball that's coming out of my leg.
And then since you're so used to being on the road, traveling all the time, I noticed this the other day. I couldn't remember what hotel room I was in. So then it made me think, does this ever happen to baseball players when you travel so much?
Yeah, it happens a lot. Sometimes you got to do some things like it. Now you put the room number on your phone so you
Uh,
don't forget it, because immediately when you get to a hotel, if you have time and it's not late, you're going to have dinner. You're
mm,
going out with the guys or having some fun, and you
yeah.
come back, you go, uh-oh. I don't remember what floor I was on. So there's been some embarrassing walks, I'm sure, from guys that go up to the lobby
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I forgot what my room number is."
And then one last question about being a player. Scenario question, would you rather be a pinch hitter on a good team or be an everyday player on a bad team?
Great question. Um, I know what my mom and dad are going to say. They're going to say everyday player, but I say this now, and it's all perspective, right? I played 14 years, and I had to fight for every day that I was in the big leagues. Nothing was easy, but longevity means a lot to me, as I mentioned. So playing 14 years as a pinch hitter, and that feeling of your team knowing that you were prepared and ready, and you came through at the right times, that's a great feeling for me.
Mm,
I always believed in myself and hitting, but if I was an everyday player, that might be I might be saying I played 2 years in the big leagues.
mm,
And I say that in tongue in cheek, because I always believed in myself, and I always did believe in myself, because you have to, if you're a big leaguer, you have to have that certain mindset and that mental toughness. Um, but I also realized I was ready to play every day. I got myself ready to play every day. It just was the choices of the people that are powers to be, the
mm.
manager, the general manager, people in your organization. they made that choice. But man, I wouldn't trade anything that I did, because not only did I play in 7 organizations, I mentioned my teammates were everything to me. I absolutely loved the fact that I got to play with 7 different organizations and be around so many great people in this game of baseball. To me, that's my story. And I think it's really cool to know that you had that opportunity. If I was in the big leagues for 2 years, I still would feel and have that same smile on my face to say I was a big leaguer for that long. But man, longevity meant a lot to me. And I think 14 years is extra special to say.
Yeah. Well, does it make you feel like you relate to relief pitchers? I'm just wondering if that mindset's kind of similar.
It is. And I had a bunch of conversations, because I say this to people now. Um, Hitters can't just talk to hitters. Like you have to have a different mindset. If you want to be a complete player, you have to know what they're thinking. You have to know what everyone has is an edge, and what makes them an edge. There's also talented players that didn't need an edge. And you realize that too. But yeah, I always correlate that as those short inning relievers, those guys that had to come in, the left-handed specialists. Back in the day, now it's a 3-batter minimum, so you don't really get that. But man, I remember the Dennis Cooks of the world and guys coming in to try to face Tony Gwynn at the greatest moment. That to me was, okay, I'm stepping in against Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman and guys at the time where they want to embarrass you, but you had to be prepared. You had to come through. And to me, that was a huge motivation factor. But yeah, I always correlated in what people did. And those short-term relievers were definitely coincided with what I had to do.
Okay. And one last question about that, and then I'll wrap it up. I know you got your time, but do you feel like the pinch hitting position is kind of being phased out, or like a dying art, because you don't hear the Mark Sweeney names anymore or the Lenny Harrises? So just curious what your viewpoint is on that, especially since you cover the game.
Yeah, Ryan, I do. I feel disappointed that, because I'm an old school guy and I don't make any excuses for it. The reason why is that I love decision making. I love a manager that has to make a move when it's uncomfortable. I mentioned Tony La Russa. We've talked about Bruce Bochy, guys that have a feel for taking a chance, an opportunity in a big part of the game in the 5th inning, 6th inning instead of the 9th, and waiting for your last, hey, here's your token at bat. Go out there and you get thrown to the wolves, so to speak.
Yeah.
I miss that aspect. I think the pinch hitting opportunities now is who needs an at bat, who's going to lead off because he's struggling now, and we're going to put him as a leadoff, and hopefully he gets on base. It's a different mindset from the organization standpoint. It's a different mindset from the managers. And obviously having the DH minimizes it even further. So I am disappointed in that, but the game's evolving. I'm also realizing that this is what the game is really about now. I think everyone realizes that you don't have a National American League. It's really a 30-team league.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it stinks, because it was an opportunity for me. It just really signifies how grateful I am when I got the opportunity to be in the big leagues.
Now, that's a good answer and good points too. And since you're doing the pre and post game now, that's where I connect with you on the concourse at Petco
Right.
towards the end of the year. Is that something you always saw yourself doing, or because you definitely are good at breaking things down? I can tell you enjoy it.
Yeah, I really love it, and I'm fortunate to be able to do it. I joke all the time, because it's the humor element that I always try to put into it. I have to put makeup on every day, so that's disappointing. Even though I need it, it's disappointing I have to put makeup on, because we have extravagant lights on our set, and realize that. But you know what, Ryan, I'm blessed to do it, because as a baseball player, I just didn't want to go away. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to leave and say, man, I was just so happy, and just kind of reflect on your career. Um, when you're going through a 14-year career, and also the minor leagues and the process of what you went through, I wanted to somehow try to give back. And my way, and it goes back to the mindset of my parents, my family, my brothers. I was blessed. I was blessed to be in a game for a long time. I tried to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going to coach? am I going to be able to do it? Well, coaching is a lot more time as a player. And I don't think fans realize that. It's probably on average like 5-6 hours a day more than a player.
Yeah.
So was I going to be able to raise a family and be able to do that? Was that my passion that I wanted to do? So answering those questions was huge. And I got an opportunity to be in the Dodger organizations because of Ned Colletti. He was the GM when I was there playing for them. And he created a position for me to be able to kind of go through the organization, be in the big leagues, be in the minor leagues, watch the talent, and get back into that development side of it. And I was really fortunate to that. I did that for 3.5 years. And then Fox Sports San Diego came in, and the lead guy got my name from someone, asked me if I wanted to do it. So I took an opportunity, and I said to Ned Colletti, which to his credit, he said, man, if this doesn't work out for you, because you never know, you're putting makeup on, you're putting an earpiece in, you have to talk, you say stupid things, you say the wrong thing. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And you might have a boss that says, you're not good at this. That all comes into mind. And I'll say this, Ned Colletti said, if this doesn't work for you, I want to be the first phone call when you're done. And that to me meant a lot. And it was a security blanket that I could go back and maybe be in the front office, maybe get into coaching if I felt like that was the case. But this was a perfect balance for me because I absolutely love doing what I'm doing. I'm blessed to do what I'm doing for the San Diego Padres. Also, I do stuff on Big Fox in Los Angeles, and I get to do that. I've had so many people to thank. But it's also, again, it's the work ethic that you put into it. It's so much time that you have to put in reading, getting names right, all that stuff. But I fell in love with it because it gets me around the game. One, it keeps me involved with a game that I absolutely love. But also, it's the Ozzie Smiths, it's the John Mabrys, it's the Wally Joyners, it's the Tony Gwynn Jr., Tony Gwynn Jr., all of the people that comprise the game of baseball that I've been a part of, and all the teammates on the 7 teams, I get to talk through. I get to hear their voice in my ear and be able to say it because they taught me the game, as I mentioned about Ozzie Smith earlier. But those things always resonate when you're watching a game or you get to tell a fan, hey, I've been through those 0 for 21 slumps. And it sucks, but make sure they realize this game is all about what you put into it and getting past those tough moments. So I get to kind of resonate with the fans. I try to do it, and it makes me feel like, hey, I didn't go through this game, and nothing was easy. And I want people to realize that if you're sitting on a couch and you're watching a 95-mile-an-hour fastball go straight down and go, why aren't you hitting that? Because we've all done it. It's not easy. You don't see the ball out of the hand. You don't recognize it. And something in your brain doesn't tell you to swing. So I want people to realize that. But my teammates are always in the back of my head. I get to talk about them. And I get to do something that I love to do with a guy, Mike Pomerantz, who I play is our host, who's brilliant. And we're going into our 12th year. And it's amazing that I've had an opportunity to do it. It's a lot of makeup, but I still enjoy and love doing it. And I get in the booth once in a while to do some games, and that's fun. But Don Orsillo and Mark Grant do a great job on our broadcast. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we have a fun team to finally get to watch. And as you mentioned earlier, having these big moments so my 11-year-old can watch the game, and I can watch it through his eyes.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And Mark, thanks for the time. And I just got asked real quick, because it's been staring at me the whole time, that Giants jersey behind you with the lineup card. You got some baseballs displayed. I'm just curious really quick what the story is for that.
It's special because in a Giants uniform, I had an opportunity as a pinch hitter, and we got to mention him as Manny Mota. Manny Mota for the Dodgers had 150 pinch hits. To me, it's not slighting Lenny Harris, because Lenny knows how important Manny Mota is too. I love the hit king Lenny Harris. He's unbelievable and a good friend of mine. But Manny Mota to me was the staple of what pinch hitting was all about. And I ended up tying him and passing him, and that's what the balls are. And I got to do it in a Giants uniform in front of those great fans in San Francisco. I never minimize what's going on. I got Trevor Hoffman here, got Jimmy Reese, who
Oh,
was
okay.
unbelievable there. So it's the remembrances and what the game really meant to me. But that Giants uniform was special because I got to tie and go past Manny Mota. So this right here is a fax from Manny Mota,
Oh,
which is
wow.
interesting. It's a fax, but it was a message congratulating me, which to me was very humbling. And I got to be with him when I was in a Dodger uniform, so extra special. Again, it's the history of the game. That's the reason why I have it displayed. It's not to say, hey, I played in the big leagues. It's just all the teammates and the people that I've been around in game make it extra special.
No, thanks for the story. That's really cool, and glad to see that you're creative about it. You turn into cool displays, unlike keeping it in a box in a shed somewhere.
Well, I do have
Yeah.
stuff in the box too, but that's all right.
Well, Mark, seriously, thanks so much for coming on the show. It means a lot to have you on, and it was fun getting to know you. And what else is on the agenda? What are you doing after this?
I'm just getting ready for the holidays, and then also getting ready for another exciting season for the Padres. The winter meetings are going to start
Oh yeah,
soon, so they're in San Diego. But also, baseball is always in the air. It never stops, as you know, Ryan. It's
yeah.
it's extra special. I'm just blessed to be still continuing to do what I'm doing.